All right. Y'all ready for this?
Time's up. Let's do this.
We're in for a wild night.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 208 of Born to be Wild, a wild and wild adjacent Hearthstone podcast where we have fun, hanging out with friends, and talking about the wild and wild adjacent formats of Hearthstone and spotlighting members of the wild community. I'm your host, Hydralisk, and it's great to be back on this beautiful, actually quite hot. I know you put cold in the show notes, but it's actually super hot. With ElectricSheepCity,
Meowdy,
and Schmoopydady.
Happy to be back contributing to the pod, a little less hairy.
So for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome aboard. We record this podcast live every Friday evening at twitch.tv/borntobewildhs. And the video version of this podcast is then posted to YouTube shortly thereafter. Audio versions are also distributed to all podcast apps. So however you are watching, listening, or absorbing via osmosis this podcast today, thank you. Yes, you.
Content plug. Schmoopydady. Before we get into the main topic of the show tonight, I'd like to say a quick thank you to the patrons of our show. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and comment on this video on YouTube. Another simple way to support the show is to leave a review on your platform of choice. If you're watching live on Twitch, we've got some awesome emotes that you can unlock by subscribing to this channel. This is free if you use Amazon Prime. And finally, if you'd like to show the support for the show financially, you can join our Patreon for as little as $1 per month. We have some channels in Discord that are unlocked by subscribing to the Patreon, where you can see the show come together each week. Check it out. If you'd like to interact with us personally, please join our Discord, a free and amazing online community of friends from all across the world who love talking about Wild Hearthstone. Links to all of this stuff and more, including our merch, can be found at our website, which is www.borntobewildhs.com. I guess we'll start with Sheep. How was your week?
Meowdy. I had a pretty good and pretty uneventful week. So, you know, the new season in this here game of Hearthstone started, and I haven't hit Legend in anything yet, but I've hit Diamond 5 in Standard, Wild, and Twist. All three of the ranked ladders. So, you know, it's the fifth. Already hit D5, you know, it seems like a fun milestone there, you know, 5 and 5. Yesterday was the 4th of July. I had a lot of 4th of July fun. I've got a Mountain Dew in red. That is Star Spangled Splash. White, America, which is Freedom Fusion. Freedom Fusion's my favorite of these three. And blue, which is Liberty Chill. So, yeah, they're fun. Freedom Fusion's my favorite of the three. Fun stuff. Also, you know, had some fun family time and schoolwork. Always schoolwork. You know, this is the week 4 of 8 in this current class, and then I will have done the capstone, and we'll still have 4 more classes to go. But, you know, the end is nigh.
It's called Hearthstone.
Hearthstone?
I got it. Because of the capstone is Hearthstone, and jokes are funnier the more you explain them.
Ooh, exactly. Carry on. Tell me more. So that's pretty much been my week. Like I said, pretty low key. And you know, with the all the excitement the past few weeks, totally here for it. Hydra, how was your week, friend?
My week was pretty good. So I was absent for the last episode as the Hydra fam went camping. So it was good. We didn't go extremely far, which is nice. Living where we do, wilderness is like right there. the mountains are right there. So the drive to where we went was like 45 minutes away at the most. Like if there was traffic, it would take an hour, that kind of thing. And it's a provincial park, so it was really nice. We had pretty decent weather. It rained like one of the days, but there's a picture that I have on the screen here. We don't have our tarps set up at this point in time, but prior to it raining, it was like Saturday night, we ended up setting up like a bit of a tarp city and everything, and had it so smoke from the fire could vent out nicely, like from like an arched side of the tarp. And it was really good just, to have some family time. We played a lot of card games and that kind of thing, and just like word games, and just eat campfire food. One thing that I think is absolutely hilarious though is we went grocery shopping for the camping trip. We spent like $250 on food for camping and ate less than half of it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say, and then you forgot to bring it. But I guess it's not that far away. You just get in the car, you just go and get it and bring it back.
Yeah. We ate less. We were like, you know what? The bacon and the hot dogs are easy. But we brought like steak and potatoes and like all this extra stuff. And we had 2 full grocery bags of different types of chips, like as if we were going to eat all of the types of chips and everything. I don't know. We went all out. I think like cases of pop, we had like diet pop, like diet root beer and regular root beer, and a Dr. Pepper and beer and like all this stuff. And the beer wasn't included in the groceries. That was on top of it, because in Canada you have to go to a different store for that. So
fair enough.
It was just, we spent so much on the food, and then we brought like at least 75% of it back, which is so funny. So now we have lots of food. But yeah, nice. It was a good time. One thing that was a little sad was I was supposed to, it didn't line up. Nate Wolf was in town, and I was going to meet up with him on the weekend, but yeah. So him and Blue Train ended up meeting up, and I didn't get to go because, it was good for them, really cool, because I don't think they've ever met up before, but they did that over the weekend. I was going to meet up, but I decided to stay with my family instead. Probably the correct decision. You don't want to like jet out of a camping trip to go hang out with your friends, but I'm stoked that they got to chill, so that's really cool. The internet was spotty. We tried to use, speaking of spotty, Spotify, because everyone likes to listen to some music. It was very strange. It would only select, like I switched bands and it just like wouldn't work. I don't know what was going on with that, but the internet was good enough that I could log in and complete my dailies. And like, it was not the greatest for Spotify.
The important thing.
Yeah, exactly. Priorities. And we've got the event going on too, right? So I'm like, I need to be able to do that still. So I was able to do that on Hearthstone, make sure that I'm getting all my dailies. Got to get that gold. Got to get that, because I need to get as many, packs coming up for the next expansion. And also I kept up with my Warcraft Rumble dailies. I don't think as much as I did with Hearthstone, because it's not as important, really. But it's still super fun. Speaking of Warcraft Rumble, we had got the Molten Core thing is back. I talked about that before, so that's doing the raid, and I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bosses. So it started again on Wednesday, and this time Blister Guy and I were a little more prepared than we were last time, and so we started the raid on Wednesday night, and we only have a small amount of time. So for me, it's 7 p.m. and for him, it's lunchtime at work. Right? So that is like where it lines up. And we only had half an hour on Wednesday to do it. And we beat the first 2 bosses in that half an hour because we were more prepared. I leveled up more. He's higher level than I am. So I tried to grind a bunch in between. Because it only comes around once a month, basically. And then last night we managed to beat more. And now we only have 2 bosses left. It went so smoothly that he was eating his pasta lunch, and my my family was already doing something else, and it just went so smoothly. We didn't one shot completely everything yesterday, but it was close. And so we just got 2 left. We got to beat Golem Egg, and then we got Rag. And it's really neat the way this works because you don't just get legendaries very easy. And if we beat Golem Egg, we get to upgrade an epic to a legendary. So that's super cool. I'm stoked for that. And then if you beat Ragnaros, you get Ragnaros as a playable character. And if you don't, you just don't get it, right? Like, you have to be able to beat the raid, and it's only the sort of, I would say,
Get
upper
good
echelon.
noob. Lol.
Yeah,
wrecked.
like you can't. The thing is, it's very difficult. There are videos out there, like Old Guardian. You guys know Old Guardian.
Yeah.
Sure,
He
yeah.
puts out a lot of Rumble content, and he makes videos on how to do things like free to play and whatnot. So it's super fun. Ari Morn's in the chat. He's in our guild. It's super cool. Love it, but I won't spend too much more time on that. I'm stoked to be back from vacation. I'm stoked that it's a new month. As I was saying, since I was on vacation, there's been no ladder grinding. It's been just doing the quests and stuff. So it's time to get back. I need to know what is good right now, and so I can just give her heck. Trying to pick the appropriate word. But yeah, super stoked. Anyways, Schmoopydady, how about you tell us about your week?
Sure. So I think the first thing I did after last week's pod was the very next day I was a part of a 24-hour streaming event through THL, which was looking to raise money for the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is primarily looking to work with suicide prevention in the LGBTQ plus community. And so, a large portion of my chat, I know when I stream, is a part of that community, and the rest are Argentinian. And then there's a couple in the middle of the Venn diagram. And so, it's always kind of fun. It was really honestly, I was super excited when I think it was Mako first reached out from THL and was just like, hey, would you do this? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Any opportunity to sort of give something back to a community which has given me so much was really exciting. So I didn't have to stream for 24 hours. They basically broke us up into 4-hour chunks. And my chunk was 10 p.m. my time to 2 a.m. my time, which was perfect because that's the perfect, hours for wild degenerates. And so I had a plan going in. I was a lot hairier the last week when I did the pod than I am this week, because it's kind of played out when you have a goal and you reach that goal that you shave on stream, right? That's played out. So it's okay, so what if I do this? What if I shave and then only shave half my beard, and that way somebody who has OCD, I kind of put them over a barrel. And then they have to pay out some small amount, and then I shave the rest of it. And I figure I could probably get somebody with that. But I no, I can get more creative than this. The whole stream itself, THL is looking to raise $1,000. That was their stated goal to start. And so we started with Hoppa Bear. She sent it over to me. There are, I think, 240 people she raided with.
Wow.
I handed off to McBanterface, I think 125. So I felt pretty good about taking people who were watching BGs, not constructed, and I kept a fair, decent chunk of them through what is people are starting to go to bed, people are starting to think about bed, people are eating dinner, and passing them off to McBanterface. But I'm okay, but what if I raise $100? And then I'm shaving my beard, but I'm shaving it like a loading bar. So if I get 5% of my goal, so if I get $5 and I made my goal $100, if I get $5, I'll shave 5% of my beard and then work my way around my face. And I figure that would work great. But then in the next 5 minutes, the first 5 minutes of starting the stream, I reached my goal. So it's oh great, now what do I have to do? And then we kept going. I think in total, or in my window, early in the stream, we raised $400.
That's
so
awesome.
I'm okay.
Wow.
I've shaved my face. Tom kept trying to get me to shave my eyebrows. I said, Tom, dance the hornpipe. So I'm sitting there and I'm like shaving while I'm playing Hearthstone. I had my hair bucket. I think were you there for the hair bucket?
No, I didn't.
No,
catch
okay.
the hair
Somebody
bucket.
was just like, "Where are you doing with the hair?" I got this bucket. I got my hair bucket, and so I'm shaving into it.
How much is in that microphone right now? It's kind of stuck inside it.
I haven't looked too closely, if I'm completely honest with you. And so I'm shaving and I'm playing, and again, people are in chat are just like, Schmoopy, you can take time to shave. I'm like, no, what? You don't want to watch me shave. I'll just play the game while I'm shaving. And they're like, oh, we're totally getting Razor ASMR. So I'm doing that, and then so we have to then like evolve this. Like I already raised my goal, and then I got to do more. So I made what had to be probably the worst mohawk ever, because I'm in the conditions I'm in right now. I'm in the dark. I'm at my desk, and I'm playing Hearthstone. And so, like, I'm, like, taking my turn, and then, like, and then I'm taking my turn, and, like, and then I realized, like, I'm used to shaving with my right hand. Getting the other side of your head with your right hand's really tough. And so I think at some point I might have been shaving with my left hand, and then which let me use my mouse so I could play a little bit more. But so towards the end of it, I did take a picture. I can post it up on the Discord if I didn't. I took a picture. At the end of the stream, I barely got there, guys. I did like 2 hours of wild. I was in 11x territory. I was like, all right, this is great. But I think I'm done playing wild for the month. Why don't I just camp in 11x and go play Twist or something? So I played Twist for like an hour and a half, and then Standard for like a half hour after that. I don't know. You could see I was unraveling mentally if I thought that Standard was a safe place. So, I go take my shower. I wake up the next day, and, I get up with my daughter, and, I walk her to the bathroom, and she's got to pee, and so I have her on the toilet. And she's looking at me, and she goes, Dad, you look weird. I was like, thank you, Schmoopy, too. Electric Boogaloo. And then she goes, have Mom fix your hair. And so that gives you the idea of the rave reviews that my job did. Like I took a pretty good like forward photo of like, wow, yeah, all right, looks pretty good in the front. But I didn't even shave by OBS. I was doing it all by feel while I was playing. So that was a really cool event. I'd absolutely do it again if they asked me. And I'm really super excited and proud to announce I got most of the hair in my hair bucket. And very little of it needed to be cleaned up by hand later. So that was how I started my week, I guess, if we talk about like post-pod. Then the first of the month happened, and I kid you not, I started this month out like 3 and 15. I had 11x.
Wow.
I was like, all right, yeah, I got 11x, and I'm like sort of rouletting around. I'm trying to figure out what deck do I actually want to play, and I'm like, well, I could try this, wasn't working. Try this, wasn't working. Like my first Garrote Rogue game, a Reno Priest of all things, literally played the perfect card every time, and I was just like, all right, this is not going to work for me. So I settled on Odin Warrior, kind of a throwback to a deck that I used to play a lot when we had like even shaman bots everywhere, and Maxi said was decent, and the deck I hit legend with last month, but like only for like 4 games because I was just like, well, I don't know, I need something like farm robe for 6 games. So I stayed at it for more than 6 games this time. I went 26 and 11, which makes me think that all right, dog can hunt, decent deck. Beats Miracle Rogues, Greed Piles, you can eventually combo, but like you got to get Odin down. So if you don't From the Depths it, you got to wait till turn 8 to coin her or drop her on turn 9, which is fine because the Greed Piles don't actually tempo you down 90% of the time. And if they are, you just clear them. But I'm like fizzling my Odin away. Every time I had Fizzle and Odin in the same hand, I'm playing Fizzle. I'm like, all right, just get Odin the snapshot. It's going to get Theod at some point. Who cares? And by the way, I found out that Shield Shatter into Skipper Turn into or no, what was it? Yeah, Skipper Turn, Shield Shatter, Blade Storm. Blade Storm is how you get through an Unkiliax. That's a common pattern of play. You have no idea. And so eventually got there. Came in at rank 40 day 1. So that was really cool. Kept the streak going. Yay! got a bunch of like likes and reposts. It's like, look at this weirdo playing warrior. Is decent into seed lock. Turns out if you gain 100 health and they only deal 30 a turn, you can actually win that matchup just fine, especially if you're blowing up their board every turn. So that did very well for me. And then that's not nearly as impressive though, because like again, I had 11x and I had a deck I was comfortable with, and yeah, I did it with an off meta class with a deck that you haven't seen on a meta report in ages. But then there comes my wife, and so it was the 3rd of the month, and my wife is sitting there, and she's just like, I'm at D5, 0 stars, and she got a message. She got a message from somebody random on her friends list, who I think, hindsight 2020, was like maybe like their first language wasn't English, and so they were trying to like be friendly and haha, but like I don't know, it just sort of came off the wrong way, and they're just kind of like I don't know, sheep read the message and.
When they said that she couldn't, that's when it was like,
yeah, I think that's how right? So they're like, ha, do you hate me? And she's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, they're like, it's day 3 and I am in Legend already, and you can't. And it's like, I was like, she's like, can you believe he said this to me? I'm like, all right, so what you should probably think about doing, babe, is just sending back that it's okay and life gets better. That's my usual go-to when I get weird toxic messages on the internet, because if somebody is like in that poor shape that they're doing that to you, then usually being nice to them sends them for a loop, and I love twisting people's buttons. But my wife did a little bit better than that. She's like, it's okay. Life gets better. My husband gets Legend day 1 of the month, every month, all the time. And for every month that I've played, I also hit Legend. So good for you. You're a winner, I guess, right? And then they sent us a sad face, and she did not unfriend them. Like she kept them on there, and they're like, so now they're like, uh-oh, they have the high ground, Anakin. And so then she's like, and then they're like, okay, well, will you give me your blessing? And she's like, no. And then she removed them. So it's like, all right, toxic, nice, well done. Picked on the wrong Schmoopy parent. Nice job. And she's like, all right, I need a new deck though. And I was like, okay, how about you try Pirate Warrior? How about you try a Pirate Warrior? God, Pirate Rogue, updated Pirate Rogue. You know how to work that deck, right? And so normally around like 8 o'clock, we sit down before I stream and we'll watch something on the TV. Recently, we've been trending more toward anime. We're working through Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And so like I'm like, well, I mean, just gave you a new deck. Why don't you play a game? She's like, yeah, I want to play a game. I just got a new toy. So she plays that game. She wins. I'm like, well, now you got to play a second game. She plays second game. She wins. She's like, I'm gonna queue a third up. I'm like, yeah, queue a third up. I start putting myself up on like YouTube while she's doing this. She's like, why are you playing yourself? I'm like, haha, YouTube content views, right? And so now now she wins a third game. It's like, huh. Okay, wins a 4th game, wins a 5th game, keeps winning. She's like, wow, I got an achievement, and it's like tier 9. It's like the tier 9 achievement. And I'm just like, I mean, I'm not saying anything. I come from a sports background and watching a lot of baseball and stuff, and like you don't talk about a perfect game when somebody's pitching a perfect game. Like you don't do that. And then she gets like tier 10, and she's just like, oh wow, she's like, how many games in a row have I won if I'm getting that? And I'm like, I don't know, like maybe 10 or so. I just hot hand, keep going. And like I'm typing on Discord, I'm like, guys, I'm not streaming yet. I'm delaying this. I'm watching this go. I've never seen this happen. And I understand that they changed the MMR. But my wife went 16-0 to Legend in one shot from D5 0 stars. I've never seen that. And it was nervy on the last game. The last game, she's just like, I'm looking over and like, I'm not hovering. Because again, my wife's gaming background was she had the worst member of Twitch chat over her shoulder in her brother at all times. right? Older brother wasn't letting her play, telling her she's doing stuff wrong. She needs to change things differently. And so she doesn't like a lot of input from me in a lot of times. And so I don't really give that to her. I try not to. I'm just sort of like standing there in the corner and I'm like, oh man, it's not looking good. And then she's doing a secret pass and she's just like, I only need a deckhand. I'm like, oh, I got a harmonic. That's good enough. And she's like, and I'm a legend now. And it was just unreal. She did it probably, again, it must have been an hour and a half. But like, have you guys ever gone like 16-0 to legend? I've never done 16-0 to legend. I've done some pretty sick climbs. And I've won more than 16 in a row in circumstances where the MMR was mismatched. But I've never seen that against like somebody in like of their peers. And that was really cool.
No, well done. Schmoopy mommy. That's amazing. It really is.
Yeah.
It's always been, for me at least, when you're getting into the high diamonds, it's just this back and forth, and then eventually crossover kind of thing. I've never just had that.
It was straight up, and it was a lot of mirrors, and it was seed locks, and it was control. Like literally, I saw her play every type of deck, the whole way up, and they all just died. They all just died like dogs. And like her final boss, she drew patches. Didn't matter. She was out for blood. And the best part of it is, and then we can move on to the more meat of the show. She came in at a higher rank than the idiot who was trolling her. So that was excellent. It's like you talked all the smack, and then after all that smack. After all that smack, you're not even a higher rank than my wife when she enters legend. Interesting. Anyway, what was the news?
Welcome to the news. The news is so good.
And we do have some pretty kickin' rad news this week. So first off, Twist. There's a new Twist season. And we've got, it's mostly the same as last season, but we've got 9 new heroes. So, the previous ones sticking around. We've got some additions. Marin the Manager, who is wicked good. Lady Leadrin, who's been my favorite so far.
Steve gets his own hero? That's Wicked Good's real name.
Oh, there we go. I was like, Marin, Steve, Wicked Good. That's what I said. Yep. I don't think that Steve is probably playing Marin the Manager, though, knowing him. I think he's probably still playing Zyrella, though maybe Heartbreaker Hedonis, who we'll get to. So Sargeras, the Destroyer, Elite Tauren Champion, Halveria Darkraven, Heartbreaker Hedonis, Thorim Stormlord, who is literally broken right about meow, Queen Ajara, and Tamsin Rome. So those are our 9 new heroes. And as of the time of recording, again, this is a Friday, the 5th of July, Thorim Stormlord is currently bugged. So how it's supposed to read is your hero power creates 2 basic totems. If you're overloaded, only 1 if you're not overloaded. It is pretty consistently making 2 totems even when it's not overloaded, after you've overloaded the first time. So I doubt that particular bug will stay in the game very long, but as of current recording, it is still present. So Thorim Stormlord is literally broken right now. Marin is just figuratively broken. Marin the Manager, as well as very Steve. Very Wicked Good.
Very Wicked Good. Well, that's cool. 9 new heroes. We'll see over some time, but I feel like it should, make it a little more fresh, right?
I think it has. I've been playing mostly Lady Leadrin, and it's felt a lot more fresh playing a different class than it did last season, but I don't know how long that fresh will feel. Again, I'm only I'm D5, so I've gotten some reps in. I've really enjoyed playing as and against. Where did it go? Tamsin Rome. She's really cool. So the first 30 health that you have, or 35, I think it's 30 for her, you have one hero power. And then after your initial health pool goes to 0, she doesn't die. She becomes a different Tamsin Rome, like the more like almost undead looking Tamsin Rome, and her hero power changes. So she looks and feels and plays a lot more like a single player boss, which is really cool.
That's sweet. I like that. Cool design.
Yeah, and it ramps up every turn. So like the you get into these weird standoffs where it's like, okay, if my opponent hits me right now, I gain the hero power to pyroblast him in the face. If they don't hit me right now, then maybe I can't use my hero power. And you're always mortgaging like, how much damage can I take? How much of a board can I build? Do I damage myself enough right now to flip into Tammy and then to Ultra Tammy and then send a pyroblast to their face? Like it's an interesting little like detente that you end up getting scrabbled into. I think Tammy is also my favorite right now. My favorite to play, not necessarily to climb, but my favorite to play.
Yeah, so the first kind of hero, the first stage of Tamsin, every single turn this ramps up. So it starts at 1, 2, 3, 4. You take that much damage and you summon, I think it's a demon of that stat. So if it's 1 damage that you take, you summon a 1/1. 9 damage that you take, you summon a 9/9. Once it flips to the second stage, you're deciding where to hit that damage to, as well as taking it. So it continues to ramp up consistent with what you were taking before. So if you change into Ultra Tammy on turn 9, then it goes from taking 9 and making a 9/9 to taking 9 and dealing 9 damage wherever you decide to put it. So Tamsin's really fun. Like I said, I've been playing a lot of Lady Liadrin. So Lady Liadrin has a lot of buff spells and a lot of kind of buff payoff minions. So the way that her passive and her hero power are very different. So the passive is whenever you cast a spell on one of your friendly minions, then you draw a card and it costs 2 less. So you want to kind of be buffing your stuff, drawing cards that either allow you to play more minions to then buff up, or cheaper buffs to continue your buff train going. The hero power costs 0 and refreshes as much mana as you've used, but the cooldown is however many mana turns that you just used. So for example, if on turn 2 I play a 2-drop, and then I hero power, and then I play a buff for 2 or coin out of 3, but I refreshed 2 mana crystals, right? That means that it takes 2 turns off before I can use my hero power again. So the way I like to use it, me personally, I don't know if this is like the next level strats. This is just the kind of play pattern that I've fallen into, is that I will use it pretty early on first, either on turn 2 or 3 to refresh either 2 or 3. So that then I can use it again later, but not like significantly later. So I'm refreshing either 2 or 3 and then refreshing again, either 6 or 7. So that I can play like the King Elec or the Elec buff spell that buffs it by 4/7 and gives it taunt, and then whenever it dies, then you get another 4/7 with taunt. Or the 2/6. I'm drawing a blank on both of these spells' names, but some of those big ones that
Zyrell's Mountain something else. I forget the other one is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got you.
But so that I can play either buff something that's on board a ton and go face, or play like the 3-mana 2/2 that has rush, and whenever you buff it, it buffs for double. Boom! All of a sudden, I'm buffing it a ton, keeping it from being targeted by my opponent. All sorts of stuff to try and stick a board and go face, and stick a board and go face, and buff, stick, go face. So Lady Liadrin's been my sweet spot today in particular.
Sounds fun.
It's a blast. However, not in Twist are anomalies. So anomalies have returned to the game for the other two constructed modes. Those are wild and standard. So not all of the anomalies that were in the game before have returned. The anomalies that have come back for 1 week only. So on Tuesday should be the last day that they're in, and it should not exist for the entirety of Tuesday if I'm doing my maths correctly. So the ones that are in the game are Uncontrollable Growth. Both players start with an extra mana crystal. Fast Track, reduce the cost of all cards in both players' starting hands by 1. Army of the Corrupted, the first minion played on each player's turn costs 1 less. Spread of Corruptions, the same thing, but the first spell. Driven to Greed, whenever a player ends their turn with unspent mana, they get a coin. Driven to Excess, the same thing, but they draw a card instead. Opportunity Knocks, the first card drawn on a player's turn is one they can afford to play. This one has had some people being a little grumpy for things like Reska and Mountain Giant or Molten Giant. They just can't draw them because
you won't find them. You won't find them unless you dig. Yeah,
exactly. Shifting Fate. Both players start with a gear shift in their hand. Light in the Dark. Both players' hero powers cost 1 less. No, that didn't say starting hero powers, so it's kind of compensated for the Gin effect. Gift of Gluttony. Both players start with 2 more drawn cards, and then Your Eyes Betray You. Both players' cards are golden. I have found that if you have a diamond or a signature in your deck, those maintain those kind of pricier cosmetic than the gold. So if you've got a signature Patches, that Patches is still that little meatball. It didn't turn gold.
Yeah. So I think they're fun for anybody who's playing Hearthstone strictly for fun, right? If you are competitive, and I said this when they very first announced that anomalies were coming to Constructed, that anyone who's really serious about climbing and getting top legend, that sort of thing, is gonna hate this type of thing, right? It's just, it can really take, like, you've put all this effort into tweaking your deck, knowing your matchups, and that goes right out the window with some of these. Right out the window. However, it's fun, right? Like, if you're not super serious, it's fun. So like I was saying, I was mostly doing dailies, play this many of this class, play these cards, whatever. And so I was running into these and I'm like, oh, cool. All the minions in my hand cost 1 less. That's fun, right? Wait, how did my opponent get a gear shift? They're not like a rogue. What happened there? Like, because it's neat, and I think it adds a fun twist to the game. And Hearthstone is
no, they're not in Twist.
I know, right? I think that's so funny. I was actually trying not to use that word, but then it still came out. I think it's fun. It really, really is. But I know that when I'm about to hit a rank floor or legend and one of these kind of hoops me, I'm gonna be choked. That's basically where I said, Schmoopydady, looks like you've got something to say. I can see the curl of the upper lip on this one.
Yeah, I don't know why they did this again. I know why they did this again.
It is only 1 week,
and it's the end of an expansion, and it's kind of a lame duck period. And I get why you would do this, but the first time it happened, it was very Doom in the Tomb vibes, and it happened during a Hearthstone tournament. And people just didn't enjoy it. Like, there are some people like me. Listen, I love a clown fiesta, but I absolutely understand that if you're trying to place a certain way for Masters Tour, you don't want something that's out of your control affecting the game. Now, it is worth noting that Marvel Snap players willingly play with 3 anomalies every game, right? Just like as a function of how that game is played. They willingly subject themselves to 3 anomalies, and they like it. And so, like, do I think it's always a big deal? No. But I will say, I've been... it's coming at kind of a weird time for Hearthstone. I think people in general are sort of dissatisfied with the balance of the game in general towards the end of this expansion. Our last balance patch ended up kind of like touching a bunch of stuff, but kind of left the sort of degenerate druid deck alone. And I have found that playing the degenerate tempo druid is it benefits from a lot of these, like starting with an extra mana crystal. Though, do you actually start with an? I haven't caught that one yet. Does that one actually happen?
You do.
Ew.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ew. Okay, great. I've mostly gotten like
they can
all
play
of
Splish
reduce the
Splash
cards.
Whelp on their first turn.
Yeah, I've done that one where like reduce the cards cost in both hands, starting hands by 1. Like if you're lucky, which I am, I can Doomkin on 2 with that one. Because you have Innervate, you have Coin, you can reduce the cost. And if you like top debt the other Innervate, then it's like, haha, I have Doomkind on 2. And now, lowly Squire. Or if you have like a Splish Splash Whelp with an active dragon, like there's different permutations for it. But essentially, like it feels like Rogue and Druid are abusing these more than other classes are able to abuse them. And in part, I think like they absolutely helped Shrimpy Mommy. Like there are some, I watched her play every card in her hand turn 1 once. It was disgusting. It was all reduced, and it was just like ugh. So like from a competitive standpoint, I would hate anomalies. From like Hydra said, from a casual standpoint, I think they're awesome. And maybe if you consider it, and if you consider that most of the ladder is probably casual players. Maybe these are super popular, but oh man, it's super polarized up top. It's super polarized. And so like again, coming at a time where in general people are a little dissatisfied maybe with the current state of balance across the formats, kind of like bad timing to bring back something that was somewhat controversial. So, I don't know. But it happened, and we'll have it for a week, and then after a week, people will have to find something else to complain about.
I just want to interject. I didn't realize that you sent the picture of your mohawk hair.
Oh yeah,
I did.
She found it.
It's glorious and terrible. Oh my gosh, you should have kept it. All right, yeah. Apologies. Any more to say on this one, Sheep?
I'm kind of torn because I really enjoy these anomalies. I feel like they took some of the more egregious ones out, like Yogg and some of the things that like broke even shaman, stuff like that. So I feel like they took some of the more egregious ones out, but people can't build their decks around them because they're not consistent. Ben from work in chat had a really funny thing earlier where he said that counterpoint, you could just build a deck to abuse a certain anomaly and just concede until you get that one anomaly. I mean, that would be some anomalous behavior, and I think it's hilarious. But in general, I think that anomalies are really there just to try and ramp up the fun of the game rather than the competitiveness of it. This is at the very beginning of a month. It's at the very end of an expansion cycle. So people who are trying to push hard for a high finish for a Masters Tour are honestly negligibly affected by this. They can either wait it out or, play a little bit and wait until, the new expansion comes, etc. So the downside of people who are pushing for a really good finish is not really there quite as much. That said, people have been kind of unhappy in Standard in particular with a lot of the balance changes, etc., of the game. And I think that bringing something back that was negatively received the first time is an interesting decision. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I've been having a blast. I love these
I like
anomalies.
I love anomalies. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did this for people like me. I'm not pushing for a high finish. I'm just having fun.
I enjoy a clown fiesta.
This time I'm actually reading which anomaly it was. The first time around, it was so brand new that I would forget to read it and then be confused as to what's happening.
Yes.
And and now I know it's a thing.
And on mobile, it's working really well. Yeah, but before it wasn't working so well on mobile where you could like double check what it was.
Yeah,
and now it's working well.
Oh yeah, if it disappeared, right? Okay, that wasn't just me. If it disappeared, it was like, well, you're gonna have to figure it out. You'll find out. You'll find out after you start your turns.
What it was.
And it's like, we'll gamble a little more. All right, that's fine. Yeah, now you can check, right? Like while you're picking your card. Okay, that wasn't just me. I was just like, is this new? Nah, they had this last time. They did not have it last time.
They had it last time, but it wasn't working properly. Like sometimes it worked, sometimes it wouldn't. I think more often than not it wasn't. So they worked out the bugs in that, and it's working now.
I was just like, if I looked away, I would like the game would like I'd pick my mulligan like I'd normally mulligan. The game would start, and I'd see the anomaly. I'd be like, "You idiot! Like you never keep those cards with this." Like So for example, if I'm playing a slow deck and I get play a card that you can afford, like I'm keeping a heavy hand. Like, I'll just curve out. Who cares? Mm-hmm. I'll keep the heaviest hand I can because I'm never seeing those cards ever again. So I might as well just keep my Molten Giant. I'm going to keep my, I'll keep my Guff or whatever. Like, I'll keep my heavy hand and we'll go from there. We'll play Jazz and figure out if we can and see if I can curve out from there. Because you're going to curve out. It's just like whether or not it's playable or not. So
and especially the way that one works, it's not like on 2 you're guaranteed to draw 2. You're guaranteed to draw 2 or less. On 3, you're not guaranteed to draw 3. It's 3 or less. So, like you said, you're not guaranteed to specifically curve out, but you're going to be able to play whatever you draw.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a much different play pattern whenever you know that that's the anomaly that you're going to get. It's definitely a much different play pattern, keep pattern in the mulligan. So all to say, I personally am glad that they're back. I personally am glad that they're only back for a week so that the discourse will have completely abated this time next week because they will be gone. So best of both worlds.
Perfect.
Well, up next, we did have some more Twist Hero Health updates.
Yeah, and these came on July 2nd. So one day after the actual season itself started. So Thorum went, yes. Schmoopy, go for it.
Can I give a quick overview of the Twist meta? And that'll give some insights for this. All right. So if you're going to play Twist and you're going to do well, there's really 2 decks you need to focus on. There's Thorum, who is as if Even Shaman and Odd Paladin had a baby and then made it train underneath the Stone Rite. So like it's 1 mana Prince of Totem, but also it always has +2 attack. And then when you're overloaded, it's always the hero power is always 1 mana. Make 2 totems that have +1 attack and +2 attack. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. And so you're looking at like again Even Shaman on steroids, very popular deck that everybody loved when it was getting wild. And then the other deck you got to worry about that everybody has access to because the card was free is Marin, which is again his hero power is 1 mana, shuffle 3 coins into the deck. Early on, I'm like, there's no way this guy is good. This deck sucks. I was playing it completely wrong. Skill issue on my part. It's you shuffle in coins early, and then later, his passive allows you whatever. It's like you constantly have Luna on board. Whenever you play the card to the rightmost of your hand, you draw a new card. And so if you're constantly hero powering early and getting coins into your deck, you keep top decking coins and like draw another card, top deck a coin, draw another card, and it lets you do some stupid stuff. I made a 40-40 Eddie and a 19-20 Biteweed with 5 mana today. Like it's just dumb. It's just dumb. And you make these board states, and the mix of cards is a little weird because it's like they gave him hard removal and silence for some reason. I don't know. Like it's just you just gotta roll with the punches. And so the meta is basically dictated around Marin and Thorum, and you pick your poison. Do you want to clear the board a bunch and play something like, I'd say maybe Nozdormu to try and target the Thorums, but then you get smoked by the Marins? Or do you go something a little bit more facey to take on the Marins, but then you get smoked by the Thorums because they go wide and they basically box you out? So that's kind of where we're looking at when we're looking at a lot of these health updates. And not all the health updates went up. And these two did in fact go down.
Both of these did go down.
So, like, there are other decks. So, like, go ahead, Sheep. You can do the health updates, and that gives you a little clue as to what's good and what's not.
Yeah, so the ones that went down were Thorum Stormlord, Nazoth the Corruptor, Guff Rune Totem, Lady Liadrin, Marin the Manager, King Crush, and Halvaria Darkraven. So the ones that were most affected are up towards the top. So Thorum Stormlord went from 35 down to 25. And the ones that were a slighter nudge were the more recently mentioned, Halvaria Darkraven being the lightest touched, which was 35 to 32. So all of those were, and still are, the best decks.
Yeah.
We also had some that were adjusted upwards, so the ones that were buffed. And this is an order from most affected to least affected as well. So Cthulhu, up to 50. Elite Doran Champion. Forest Warden Omu.
I jumped straight to Cthulhu too. Don't forget Adonis.
Oh yeah, Heartbreaker
Right
Adonis was went up, not down. If I accidentally said it before, I think I did. Heartbreaker Adonis and Cthulhu and Elite Touring Champion all went up to 50. Yeah, Forest Warden Omu, the Lich King. Putting a pin in the Lich King. Patches the Pirate, Nozdormu, Illidan Stormrage, Sargeras the Destroyer, Dr. Boom, Leroy Jenkins, and Queen Ajara. The Lich King, you may remember that last season, last month, I was saying that the Lich King was a great deck, that I piloted that one to Legend. Well, they did, in fact, revise the deck lists for pretty much all of the, all but, 3 or 4 of the decks of the heroes from last season. The Lich King was one of those, and the Lich King's deck was specifically made to be worse. That was intentional. They may have been a little bit heavy-handed on that one, because the Lich King went from 35 health up to 45 in these hero health updates because it just was way underperforming. Unfortunate. So those were the ones that were not doing so great. The ones that needed a buff.
Yeah, all stuff that's going to struggle against, I think, Thorum and Marin. Like, all the stuff I feel like that got nerfed is all stuff that's good into Marin. And Marin was very popular day one because he was free. And if you could figure out how to play him, he was good. And so, like, something like King Crush, where you're basically cheating out a big fat guy and then go and face a bit, and then, like, you can finish it off with your hero power into a deck that has no taunt and no healing. where it does have healing, that one card, and that refreshes mana as well. Why does it have that? Right. And so like that's like you can kind of like sort of see like, oh yeah, wow, these were doing okay, and this other stuff that got buffs, like no, this was struggling into Infinite boards and Miracle Rogue 2.0. So
exactly. So I'm not sure if I'm going to punch it all the way in with Liadrin or not. She's a lot of fun. Marin is also fun. Thorim is also fun. They're also broken. Thorim in particular in a literal sense. But I feel like the addition of these additional heroes has kind of freshened up the twist meta a little bit. I will say from a personal perspective, not being able to make my own deck is still something that I'm kind of struggling with, because I feel like the passive and the hero power are really cool. I want to build a Cthulhu deck differently, but I can't do that. That's not how this works, right? I would love to build a Cthulhu deck with actual Cthulhu pieces more than just like Icestalk and Doomcaller and
thank God they added the Doomcaller. So you're not like just gambling like, okay, maybe I'll find the Doomcaller off the hero power if I tempo this Cthulhu. No, you know it's in decks. You can go get it. And Icestalk's awesome, but that deck is okay, yeah, you're right.
So I really do wish that I could build my own, but I know that that's not what I mean, that's the whole point of this one, is that we can't. So I'm still struggling with that a little bit, but Liadrin's pretty close to how I would build her. So I think that's probably why I'm most drawn to that one, because it's the one that resonates with me the most as a deck builder itself. Friend of the show, James Corbett Games Corbett, had a really insightful kind of tweet thread earlier today. So he quote tweeted someone who said, "It's always the Stormwind defenders who say the game is bad because we have too many nerfs. We get it. You want a single player game. Unfortunately, Hearthstone was designed to be a multiplayer game. Making the meta more powerful and busted doesn't lead to a better game." So that's kind of the stance that Corb is kind of refuting in this thread. So Corb says, "I think there's a lot to springboard off from this tweet, so here we go. Let's start on nerfs. I think in general, it's good to frame the conversation about the meta rather than in any individual deck, because a nerf to a quote-unquote problematic deck may not lead to a more fun experience. Meta, which is the thing we should actually care about. The change to Celestial Projectionist may have been to stop quote-unquote problematic play patterns, but it softens the meta for Druid, and the extreme current standard meta is the result. In quotes, they should have just nerfed Druid too. People seem to like the Druid deck quite a lot. Sheep aside, it is a really fun deck.
It is a fun deck. I like it.
Mm-hmm. People really like playing Druid decks that ramp up. More on this later. If Team 5 went in there, would it be a failure if Druid remained at, say, 20% of the meta? 16%? And that poses the question, what is the point of a nerf? Change for change's sake? Chasing perfect game balance? I think ideally you have a format where there's a lot of stuff that people really like to play and get attached to. It's hard for people to grow attached to any deck when the most fun stuff is likely to be fun for lots of other people too. And it's fun for lots of people. It gets played a lot. If it gets played a lot, well, it gets nerfed. Late game decks are most popular when they incrementally / synergistically build towards inevitable late game. Fell Demon Hunter, Rainbow Mage, Quest Handlock, Shutter Shaman, Raza Priest, and pretty much every single ramp druid ever. And so on. No one wants standard Reno Shaman. Sorry. Nah, I hate Sif. Shutter Walk is such Hearthstone is at its best when it does not try to be a multiplayer game. Hearthstone is often a single-player game cosplaying as a multiplayer. Sure, there's room for soft disruption like Cult Neophyte, but in the vast majority of cases, I don't think it matters if X deck makes you mad. If there's enough diversity in the format, if players have lots of stuff they can grab and play with, hopefully you don't see that thing that killed you and made you mad for another 10 games. Lower power level does not inherently mean more fun or more quote-unquote agency. Did anyone try those commons or old card twist formats? Classic? That stuff sucked, man. Sorry. It's fun having cards and doing things. Does that mean make standard equal wild? God, no. There's obviously a big middle ground. I don't think a default setting of, well, time to make a lot of balance change because it's been a couple of weeks, has made the game more fun. I think holding off on the Demon Seed in Wild was a prudent choice, and perhaps something that should be carried into Standard more often. I find it hard to mentally invest in Standard when I expect patches 1, 2, and 3 after expansion launch. Oh, and regarding Stormwind, one of the better expansions made. It's often misremembered, its flaws are misattributed, and the polarized reaction to it was largely because of timing. So I paraphrased a couple of those things for our family-friendly audience. But I've got to say, as someone who plays all of the modes, I find myself agreeing with Corb a lot here. It's really hard to find a deck and just like settle on it and kind of like learn it and refine it and just have that be like my deck, because as soon as it becomes too good, like remember whenever I was singing the praises of Shopper Demon Hunter and then it went away, and then I was singing the praises of Zarimi Priest, and guess what I'm not singing the praises of anymore. Like every time I find a deck that I really enjoy in Standard, it gets nerfed. And there have been a lot of calls for that kind of heavy curation in our format too. We've seen more attention paid to our format in recent months, really the past couple years, than we had before then. And I think that's kind of a double-edged sword for the exact phenomenon that Corb is mentioning here. As soon as we find a deck that we really like, is it going to just get nerfed or banned? I think that Corb is absolutely right that holding off on banning the Demon Seed was the right choice. I mean, we don't know if they were going to ban or nerf or there was a lot of call for both. Neither of those things happened. And Corb said that was a good thing. And honestly, I agree. What I really like about Wild is that promise that we can play the broken stuff, that we can play the decks that we really like. I took Embiggen Aggro Druid to Legend last month. I couldn't play an archetype that's been around for 3 years in Standard to any sort of success or at all because the cards have rotated, right? So that's kind of my take, because I really like refining a deck and getting really good at a deck and that kind of learning and that development as both a player with a deck and a deck builder. But I also want to hear what y'all think about Corb's take on the situation. Hydra, starting with you.
Yeah, so as a Wild player, I don't want to be, I guess, biased and just pick Corb's side just because he's a good friend. But I agree. I switched, if I didn't even see his post, right? I switched from Standard to Wild for a reason. My favorite card at the time had rotated, and that was Bran Bronzebeard, right? To me, that was disruptive. That was a very disruptive thing because I relied on that card and I said, all right, I'm done with standard because I built my deck around it, right? And that is something that I was used to. And yes, in Wild, they're going to nerf things. That's going to happen, but it's not as devastating as it is in standard, right? Especially if you are a free-to-play player, you're the type of person that dusts all their cards when they rotate into Wild. You've already, established this collection. You are now getting rid of those cards. They're gone. You can now craft this cool new legendary that you thought was great. You're building this deck. You're getting used to it, and then it's just wiped, right? And may never be good again. Unless you want to wait and go play Wild when it gets reverted. Well, guess what? You're dusting all your Wild cards anyways, and you won't be able to play the better version that exists in Wild. So I switched to Wild for a reason. When I started my EU and Asia accounts, they were specific to Wild. I'm going to build my Wild collection. Why would I play, in my head, why would I ever play free-to-play standard? It didn't make any sense to me because if I'm going to build a collection, I'm going to be grinding and grinding and grinding just to get rid of everything and start all over again. Made no sense to me. And while I haven't touched them, and I don't know, when did I quit the drug? I forget. But I played those accounts for so long. I can go right now, I could log back in and probably get those free decks that they give you.
Sure. Bunch of gadget packs too.
I guarantee you, there's the Pirate Rogues, there's the Even Shaman, there's the Reno decks that I built. I know that I've got, Even Warlock. I've got all sorts of things. I've got Aggro Druid. I have all sorts of stuff over there that I could fall back on, and I haven't touched those accounts in at least 6 months at this point because I was building that Wild collection. And yeah, investing in standard with the rate that they nerf things. And yes, nerfs are good, but we're going to look at the free to play, not the whales like us that are going to buy both mega bundle and standard bundle. Free to play, for me, no way. It does not make sense to invest in standard with the way that they nerf things. And disclaimer, I am fully glad they nerf things, just not as a free to play player. Schmoopydady?
I'm pivoting because I was going to ramble about another topic, but I think I can have my cake and eat it too. So let's just start with this. Nerfing for nerf's sake. I'm not going to say I get shouted down, but I sort of take this unpopular stance where I don't always love that they have so much involvement in the schedule that they nerf standard at, because I think game balance is difficult. I know Sheep feels like the twist meta is freshened up. I think in a lot of ways it's more stale even faster now because they introduced 9 heroes and 2 of them are busted. And now my play experience is essentially shrunk down from where it was, a varied amount of different heroes, even though some weren't good. It basically sucked it all down to I either face Marin, I face Thorim, or maybe somebody has a wild hair and is playing Crush, or somebody has a wild hair and is just trying somebody different. I don't. Mostly it's all Marin, Thorim, Marin, Thorim, Marin, Thorim, Marin, Thorim, Marin, Thorim. Mostly a sea of Marin because that's the free card. So nerfing for nerf's sake, I don't want that in Wild. Again, I like the stability of Wild. I think in a weird way they're doing a decent job of Wild. When we really cry out and are just like, this is not tenable, they step in and fix it. Now, that might be once a year, and there's a very legitimate call that you can make where you could say, well, no, they really need to step in and fix 5 or 6 or 7 other things, and you'll have a better, healthier format. And I agree. But given the manpower right now, given the situation that we're in right now, given the imperfect tools that we have for the imperfect situation, I actually don't think Wild's all that bad. I see some people call Wild unplayable, and I don't quite understand what. And so that's where I sort of get to have my cake and eat it too. This discussion we were going to line up was the usefulness of deck labels. And again, we had a tweet. Again, Sheep, if you still have the image, it was like, okay, what's the most popular deck that you would play? Again, from an individual, and I can't find it right now, but it was like Control was 41%, right? Control was 41%. And then we look at, hold on, wait. Oh, Hydra has it for me. Perfect. Okay, right? Control was 43%. 43% of people prefer to play control decks, right? And then it was 27% mid-range and 16% aggro and 13% combo. And this was done November 16th in 2023. Okay. Now, something I want to keep in mind is somebody pointed out in the comments, 57% of people don't want a 30-minute game, which I thought was very funny and a good way to come out from talking about this. That being said, I also see people that say stuff like, Control is dead in Wild. And I'm like, what? And so a quote from somebody talking to somebody else in a Discord. He's just like, this is what this person's saying. I said, well, what do you mean you don't have a control deck? We have Reno Paladin. And the person said to this person who's quoting this other person, okay, so there's a dialogue between two people, all right? You tell me how Reno Paladin is a control deck, proper control. Oh, yes, okay, you stall and remove and heal, but then you OTK them. So it's a combo deck in the end. And like this is the kind of statement that to me, which is why I wanted to bring up this whole like discussion about possible labels, because I hear all the time from people who don't know what they're talking about that Control is dead in Wild. I went 26-11 with Odin Warrior. Yeah. With Odin Warrior. Well, no, Schmoopy, that's a combo deck because you're using the Risky Skipper combo to gain armor, and then you have Odin, then you OTK them. And that's what these people will tell me. But I don't know. Half the time I'm sitting there, I'm getting hit in the face. They're the beatdown. I'm the control, and I'm trying to remove their stuff until I can do what I can do to win. And so I wanted tonight to bring up an important sort of perspective of sort of leaving these labels behind between combo, control, aggro, what have you, mid-range. I hate the labels to begin with, all right? I got into a discussion another time about somebody who was trying to correct me. That's not a burn deck, that's a burst deck, and I wanted to slap somebody. I actually wanted to slap somebody. They didn't respond. They didn't type anything after that comment. They were just like, oh, that's not a burn deck, that's a burst deck. And it's like, okay, nerd, but like, do you have anything else to add, or is that it? And so I want to leave these labels behind because in a natural game of Hearthstone between two people or Magic the Gathering, or really any TCG card game, right? There's somebody who is a little bit more proactive and somebody who is more reactionary. Okay, so there's a beatdown and there's a control. And that's how this was put in the Magic article 1,000 years ago, as quoted by Keith Numbers, who told it to me on stream, and I've kept it with me ever since. You can be playing a game between two pirate rogues, and guess what? One is the aggro, one is the control. For me, any deck that is set up to naturally take that more reactionary position is a control deck. And so if you're telling me that control is dead in Wild, I think you're crazy. And I'll be lucky if I get through this speech without any more gurgles. Because I just watched as I did everything in my power to remove your stuff, and you conceded before I can do my win condition. But Corb has a tweet in here that actually identifies my feelings exactly. Late game decks are most popular when they are incrementally, synergistically building towards inevitable late game. Okay? Games need to end. We are long past the times where we're playing Odd Warrior and we're hitting our button and we're waiting for fatigue to kill somebody. That's not control. That's bad deck building. We have tools that end the game now, and they keep introducing them. That's control. That's okay. It's okay to have a control deck with a combo finish, as they used to say against Raza or about Raza Priest all the time. And by the way, if you're like, all right, well, Robin, let's do a couple of decks real quick. No, let's do a couple of decks because it's. This is the craziest thing. I saw this spat on Twitter, right? And this is a perfect discussion question because it was 4th of July and people were already throwing fireworks, right? People are so weird on... I don't know what it is about Hearthstone Twitter right now. People are so weird. I don't know if it's the increased heat in the US or North America, or if it's just like I don't know, just people are just generally unhappy with like across Twist. You've got 2 decks that are running rampant. Standard has one really good Druid deck that nothing can ever really beat it significantly, and Wild is just Wild, so like those people are always howling at the moon, so it really doesn't matter what they're saying. But like, you know, I don't know what it is where people are just so dissatisfied, and like, I don't know, the new expansion, is it too beachy? Do we not like beaches? Like, I don't it's weird. I see more of these discussions happening all the time. So like, just real quick, is Garrote Rogue an aggro or a combo deck, guys?
Yes.
It's both.
I mean, legitimately, yes. Like the way that I typically play it is more as a combo deck, but the draw engine is a board, and if my board isn't dealt with, then I win with aggression. So like legitimately, yes.
If we're gonna put labels on it, which Schmoopydady, I know that you're like, let's get rid of the labels. If you were, there are decks that blur the lines on these completely. And I totally agree with you that if you're going to play a control deck that actually has a win condition, nobody can tell you didn't play a control deck, because control decks didn't used to have a win condition all the time, right? It was just like, can I outlast the opponent?
I mean, even then, like Wallet Warrior was probably the first like control deck, and
yeah, my win card is like a
game.
You won with Garrosh. You won with Garrosh.
Like my rag is now hitting you. Like,
you won with Garrosh. You guys both failed, by the way. The answer is who cares? No, like it's just like
who cares is the real answer.
Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter. Like more often than not, it's the beatdown, and then it has a big old burst turn at the end. Like, but like, who cares? Is it fun to play? And that's kind of the vibe of what Corb is going for. Is like Standard is so over nerfed that it's not even, you don't see a variety. It's frequently not fun to play at a certain point because you get attached to a deck and you can't play that deck anymore. And like, just like you said, Hydra, like I'll just echo your point. Like there's a reason why I swapped a Wild long time ago. And that was like, I can't keep up with the dust that I need to make the best deck in Standard. To make this fringe legendary that makes my pile now the nuts. Like I can't do it. I can't do it. So I went to Wild, where I was just like, well, I have my much more stable, budget-friendly aggro decks, and I built up my collection from there. And now I own all the cards, and I can play what I want. But like a majority of people can't do that. And a little off topic, I do want to disagree with Corb a little bit, and that is at the last comment about Stormwind. And this is only on this point. I did not play Stormwind Standard. I was exclusively playing Stormwind in Wild. From a tryhard's perspective, Stormwind was awesome. Anybody who I know as a pure spike loved Stormwind because there was a lot of powerful tools and they were kind of effective against each other and you got to swap them around. From a meme lord's perspective, okay, Stormwind was a disaster. It was an extinction event. From a casual's perspective, Stormwind was an abomination. And so keeping that in mind, what are there more of who play Hearthstone? Casuals or spikes And that tells you a lot about how, like, who's going to win or lose that argument. It's just like a lot of people are just not going to look on Stormwind favorably, just because it's like the quest lines are all overtuned. It's so goofy to me how one of these comes out of the woodwork every once in a while, where it's just like, okay, nobody's breaking the rogue quest line ever. But for a hot minute, when people were really pushing like Demon Seed, when we were still having this discussion of like, should it be banned? No, it shouldn't, dummy. When we were doing that, right? The quest line, the mage quest line was coming back out of nowhere because you could burst it down. It's like, oh, this is great. I put up a couple ice blocks, maybe a frozen alibi every once in a while. Their health is low. I just burst them down with spell damage. Hey, this is great. I'll make it all spell. It'll be cool. They keep coming back. And so, like, this is a great thread by Corb. Credit to him for sort of taking this sort of casual, step by step why this perspective was a little bit misguided. But and I think he largely gets it, and it largely mirrors why I think I like Wild right now, and why I don't want devs stepping into Wild all that often. For that reason, because balance is hard, and I feel like they sometimes do things in standard just to do things, and sometimes when you do things just to do things, it gets broken, especially if you're pushing certain designs, and you are pushing power level, at which they should. That's the other thing, guys. All right, Hydra. When you hear the word power creep, what do you think?
I think that people don't understand card games when someone complains about power creep, because a river croc can only be a river croc for so long, and a bloodfen raptor can only be a bloodfen raptor for so long. Are they just going to keep reprinting those cards with beast tags, or are they going to give in the game has to get more interesting. The card is going to need to have a new effect, right? They're going to have to, there's never going to be just a 2/3 and a 3/2 with a beast tag and keep the game interesting. They're going to have to do things like Zephyrus, right? Like there is exactly an example of the same, stat line, and now does something crazy, right? Maybe that's an extreme.
Yeah, you cranked it up there pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
You went way faster than I expected.
But so that could be like the biggest example, I suppose.
But Azalea's exactly right in the chat. He calls it Zeph is the coolest card ever. I think Zephyrus is still my favorite card. Now keep going, King. You're doing great.
So how can you keep your audience engaged without the quote unquote power creep? Sorry, it's not power creep. It is improving, right? It is, let's keep this game interesting. Nobody's going to keep playing base statted cards with just a tribe attached to it over and over and over again. Yes, this game used to be board based and that was it. And we had tribes. And then maybe there was a couple of control decks with, like Freeze Mage and some Priest.
Freeze Mage is a combo deck, Hydra. I can't believe you called Freeze Mage I can't believe you called Freeze Mage a control deck. Freeze Mage is not a control deck. Shut up.
I see your point.
Oh my God.
Right? Yeah.
Oh my God, shut up. Who cares? Oh my God, shut up. Who cares?
So
Stop
funny.
gatekeeping. Shut up. All right. Sorry, no, it's not you, but yeah.
No, I know. I triggered you by calling it a control deck, even though I know that you believe it's a control deck.
Actually, it's a burst deck, not a burn deck. All right, thank you.
It's a burn control combo burst.
That's how we're gonna properly. That's how
Who
we're gonna
cares?
properly rate it. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no. In general, power creep, I don't think it should be. It's like a slur at this point. Like the devs are trying to make the game more interesting for you to play, and you complain about it.
It's so weird.
Well, and I think that the devs trying to make it more interesting can definitely backfire a little bit too. Case in point, the over nerfing of standard in the past expansion. It's kind of lose-lose because you've got the people in mass calling for nerfs every single day. Nerf this, nerf that. I just lost to this card, let's nerf it. I just lost to that card, let's nerf it. So you've got people calling for nerfs constantly, and the dev team has done a great job even before. I'm going to take this particular expansion cycle out of it, but having a really regular balance adjustment window. This past expansion cycle, I think it just got to be too much, and it wasn't sustainable for players, which I think is why standard engagement even is lower. But also then we had huge nerfs. And then one thing was quote unquote missed, or, Boom Boss shuffled into your opponent's deck instead of yours. And that broke the the Doom card, which was the only
Doomkin, which was like kind of quietly kind of okay, but at the same time, like not good enough that anybody would ever on purpose put it in their deck. But like, they'd be like, all right, if I discovered this is funny.
So all of this kind of over nerfing has kind of been the other edge of that sword. And what you said, I think, which is kind of the thesis of our argument, is that, yes, some adjustments whenever things get completely broken in our format, love to see it. Like Darkest Tower Warlock, however much it was a personal favorite of mine, shouldn't have stuck around forever, right? Stuff like that.
War criminal.
Like you're not. You play Wild.
I mean, that's true. That's true.
But the other side of that is standard this past expansion cycle, because it started off hot out of the gate with tons of super early nerfs to Paladin, and then Demon Hunter, and no one could really settle on a deck because it always got nerfed. But then on the other side of it is, if we never have any nerfs, then we're stuck with Snip Snap Warlock forever.
Which Ben from work in chat is saying right now, oh, we should have had it forever. No, Ben, you should not have had it forever. We will not let you jiggle, Ben. We will not let you jiggle the card.
So that happy medium, and honestly on our side of it, the happy medium is, I think, kind of what we've got. We get about like once an expansion cycle, they deal with things that are super duper outliers, and then we wait. And then of course we also have anything that's completely broken in standard or just needs nudges for whatever reason in standard. If I had to guess, and I don't know this despite, regular conversations with the dev team. I don't know if they think that they've over nerfed standard or not. I haven't had that discussion with them. I think they've over nerfed standard this past expansion cycle. Case in point, the tweet thread that we just read. And I think it's honestly made it less fun, less engaging, and harder to keep up with for both casuals and tryhards. And it's kind of the worst of both worlds. So if we have that happy medium, I think that everyone will be happier. Don't get me wrong. People will always be on your social media platform of choice calling for nerfs all the time. It's just something that we're going to have to live with. But that's happening now. That's happening to this day because, you missed Druid. So just one more nerf. So now that, so then we just add the Druid one to it. And then something else is the most powerful deck. And then people are just asking for just one more nerf again. And then just one more nerf again. And then just one more nerf again. And then just...
It's what they were always afraid of. It's what Ixar was always afraid of. So it's like, well, this is why we don't nerf Wild. It's because, there's always going to be a bigger bad. Like, no matter what, there's always going to be a big bad. And I understand that Wild right now might not be your cup of tea. Like, that is a separate discussion to have from it's completely unplayable. Because like I know for a fact right now I have a quote unquote good deck roulette that if I really wanted to, I could fill out 27 decks of varying styles. Combo's probably the weakest. So like if you're a combo player and you really don't like Wild right now, like I understand, but you still have like Alex Rogue, Ignite Mage, Waker Mage, Il'gynoth, Lifesteal DH. Like there are combo decks for you that are pure like based off the combo to play. There are control decks that you can play.
But they have win conditions.
Well, we're gonna Schmoopy, you're adding labels to decks again. Shut up, chat. Like you can still find decks that trend more in the styles that you want. They just like might not be what you're looking for. And I think if you really like pinned Corbett down, we're just like, hey Corbett, do you like Wild right now? He'd be like, no, Lamau, and that's why he doesn't stream anymore. But in one of his tweets, he talks about how, like, you know, what you're really looking for a format is like a diversity of experiences. And like, even if something is like the best deck, like you still see a variety of things. And I think we see that a lot more in Wild, especially right now. Like, I think we're going to look back on this being a decent meta because we're seeing a variety of things. Even if sometimes the things that we see, we're just like, oh God, no, double null again on one. I mean, I don't care. I have Bladestorm in my hand, but, that kind of thing,
you do.
You know, that, yeah, I mean, like, you know, it might not be what you're looking for, but like there are ways to play into it and around it. So I don't know.
And as someone who plays really all three formats consistently, whenever the third is available, you hit the nail on the head. Like whenever I'm trying to play standard right now, I'm trying to play against Druid predominantly. You know, I'm D5. I actually didn't get 11X this month. I was just barely on the cusp. I know.
I could have foreseen this.
Oh no, I have to continue playing the game. Oh no, whatever shall I do?
No, we can't do that.
Don't you know you're supposed to get 11X in Hearthstone so you can play less Hearthstone sheep? God.
But all I'm playing against is predominantly, not only, but predominantly Druid and honestly Rogue. A lot of Excavate Rogue too. And those decks are okay to play against. You know, I probably have a losing win rate against Druid in particular, but a positive win rate against Rogue. Whenever I play our format, I have no clue what I'm going to play against any given game. Warrior, Warlock, Rogue, Druid, like just the classes, let alone the archetypes within them. Note I said archetypes and not control mid-range, etc. Between the two, I vastly prefer playing Wild right now, and that's not always the case. I always enjoy playing Wild too, but sometimes Standard's more interesting. And I think because a symptom of the over nerfing in Standard, it's homogenized the format.
Fair enough.
And Wild's more diverse.
Well.
Oh no.
Unrelated advice. With
You're not going to make me
Schmoopydady.
talk to myself again, are you? Because I can talk to myself. But...
No, this one may have a more obvious answer, but I want to know like a deep-seated answer, I suppose. So I'll start off with a little tale. Hydralisk and his family were camping, right, this past week. And one thing that I've noticed is my dad and his brothers, they'll send me videos over WhatsApp of whenever they're camping and they make friends with squirrels, right? Like the squirrel comes up and they've even had the squirrel sit on the chair of their arm and everything. And they always show these little videos and like, oh, look, this squirrel is our friend and everything. And that is so cool. And I wasn't thinking about it when I was camping, but we ended up having a squirrel show up and he was sitting on a stump, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is my chance, right? Like my dad and his brothers, they always get videos of these squirrels. I'm going to make friends with this squirrel, right? And I try to get close to him and he'd run away and then I'd go sit down and he'd come back and he'd get really close. And eventually like I just stopped trying to get close because he'd run away. But it's neat, and I got a little video. I don't think I posted it, but I got a video of him sitting on a stump next to me, and my son thought it was cool. My wife thought it was cool, and we're like, yeah, we made a friend. That was really neat. Till we woke up in the morning, and that little piece of came and got inside our kitchen gazebo, found a bag of ketchup chips, took that into the forest, ate the entire bag. This squirrel ate an entire bag of Old Dutch ketchup chips. Like, not even kidding.
Rude.
And then grabbed a couple other things, and it was like all gone. And what I want to know is,
Did it drink the beer?
it did not drink the beer.
All right, you're good.
Drink the beer. But is there a difference between the squirrel that wants to be my friend and the squirrel that just wants to eat my food? And if there is, how would I know?
So I'm going to explain it the way that I would explain it to Schmoopy at 6 years old. And the thing about explaining things to Schmoopy that you got to realize is, like, I don't know how this kid's brain is wired, but if things are not life and death, if the consequences are not steep enough, he's going to ignore what you said and he's going to do whatever he wants. So you got to really make it worth his while. And so what I'm going to explain to you is that squirrels are wild animals, Hydra, and you can't trust a wild animal. You can give it food, and now it's learned, oh, if I come near this being, it will give me food. And, like, you could put it in your shirt pocket and give it food, and it might say, oh, if I go in the shirt pocket, I get food. But you never know what's going to trigger it. And, like, you know, Billy Ray Cyrus might come on somebody's phone or something like that, and the squirrel just goes completely ape and will scratch you up, and you're like, ah, right? And what triggered it? And you find out that the squirrel just doesn't like country. And so you can't trust a wild animal. You never know what its instincts are going to be. And it was scoping the joint. It definitely identified you as the weak link in your family. I'm sorry. And so it also, if you're going to have to realize that, like, those potato chips that it finished off, like, it saw those from the jump. That's probably what brought it to the campsite in the first place.
Oh, it
so
didn't finish them off.
In,
it found them. We didn't even open that.
Oh, didn't even open it? Well, those are the squirrels now. You
didn't
tossed
even
those in
give
the
it
bush,
any
right?
Food at all.
Did you toss it? Did you toss
food.
it in the bush? You took the open bag that the squirrel had been in and you tossed it in the bush, didn't you?
No. What do you mean? Would I litter? Of course not.
It's biodegradable. Why wouldn't you? In any case. Right. So yeah. So that squirrel.
Oh, no,
that squirrel.
If you're asking, it ate every single chip in the bag.
Oh yeah. Okay. I thought you were implying it left any behind.
No,
you saw it later and you saw the paunch?
I saw the little jerk the next day. He's chilling in the tree and he's bracking off. He's like cheeping at me.
Of course he is.
And you can see he's got. Do you see how this king plush has got a bit of a little belly like this? That squirrel had a bigger belly the next day.
Yeah. Did you talk smack back, or did you make any sort of show of dominance, or did this squirrel just sort of just?
Oh no! It
just
was
assert that he was
like,
king of the campsite. Yeah. Yeah, unlucky. I mean, he's a dumb squirrel, so, like, you know, he gets the low slot in life. But I don't know. I would just say, no, there's no difference between the squirrel in the friend videos and the squirrel that mugged you. Other than the squirrel that mugged you, maybe it's more of an executive squirrel. I'd say possibly like a little bit more like leadership material. That squirrel is going to make a lot more squirrel babies, and we're going to have more of them in the future.
Would you say that the squirrels that mugged me also mugged my dad and his brothers? They just never filmed that part?
It's possible, especially if they got into their beer.
Wiser words have never been spoken, and you heard that on
Born to be wild.
The only squirrel that is our friend is Ben Hearthstone.